All right, we're live. Well,
What is up?
yeah. What's going, guys? So just a heads
Well,
up, we're going to be dealing with a little adversity today. Skype is having some issues, but I mean, you still gotta. The show must go on, so we're going to run through everything and appreciate the patience. But just want to give a heads up.
you can't stop us. Nothing can stop us. Thank you guys for tuning in. As you know, you're tuned in to Fill in the Blank on the Non-Corporate Network. My name is Chaz Vandemotter,
Dustin Trout.
and we are stoked to bring you the top 6 trending small business stories. This is a show where we spend 3 minutes arguing about each topic, ESPN style. And be thankful you're not watching CNBC, because there's some white-haired old guy that's drawing through really boring stories and wasting your time this morning. So we're here to bring you the quick-hitting stuff, get you what you need to know, bring you up to speed, and kick you out so you can get on with your day and get after it. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. You ready, Dustin?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so Visual Capitalist reported that there's a lot of trends in these different industries, and some that are growing, some that are not growing. I thought it was interesting. They did a little bit more research and took it to another level, where they looked at the download increases versus decreases compared to the monthly active user increases and decreases across a variety of different apps and industries. And it was interesting to see how some industries were growing in downloads, but not necessarily growing in usage, and vice versa. And so some of the things that stood out to me, Dustin, were the healthcare industry. The remote healthcare industry is been catalyzed by this. There's a lot of apps out there. Actually, one app called MyChart, #1 medical app in the Apple Store, seen incredibly huge increases in downloads. Obviously, media, entertainment, online shopping apps, video chat have all seen dramatic increases. But what are your thoughts? Were you surprised by any of the findings in this story?
No, I mean, everything that pops out, I mean, makes sense. There's more consumption across entertainment. I mean, the one that does kind of surprise me is the Netflix one, where getting more downloads, but not as many active users. But I think it goes to, I mean, if I'm staying at home, I'm probably not going to watch Netflix on my phone, just going to watch it on the TV. But I mean, there's nothing surprising here. I mean, other than the other one that kind of sticks out is the food delivery. I mean, I feel like I see so many more people talking about Uber Eats and all the food delivery. I think one thing outside of just the surprising aspect of it is from a marketing perspective, maybe being mindful of are you placing ads? Are you reaching people on apps? I mean, more people are going to be using them, but I think it's being mindful of where you're targeting. But I mean, in terms of surprising, is there anything that surprises you on what's out there?
You know, I think that we obviously know the video chat, the online conferencing, the online shopping. I thought it was interesting seeing the rise of like Instacart, and now the rise of these shopping grocery stores trying to create their own technology to combat against something like Instacart. So it'll be interesting to see that industry rise. Obviously, we know real estate's been affected as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty cool to see what's happening there, where because people are less concerned with the cost of real estate, the scarcity is increasing. And so I think that if you're an investor or you want to hedge your bets, real estate is increasing in value right now, despite the decrease in actual attention. And so that's something to consider, especially in the real estate world.
Yeah, one thing that surprises me is that there aren't more grocery stores on there. I mean, I know Fry's has an app where you can do curbside pickup and all that type of stuff. I think they could help with all the inventory issues that have been happening if they push that a bit harder. So it'd be cool to see them push that as we move forward. But on to the next story. So 90% of employers, as they're going through the interview process, actually look at applicants' social media posts. And it kind of sways their decision on whether to hire or not. and it's 79% of applicants have been denied positions by HR due to certain posts or content on people's social media. I mean, a lot of it has to do with just showing drug use, hate speech, talking negatively about previous employers. I mean, all that type of stuff makes sense. I think, I mean, with culture being such a huge buzzword when it comes to companies in today's world, I think, I'm for it. Look at people's social media. I was having a conversation last night where, does a 1 hour interview even make sense anymore? I mean, we all know that you're going to ask the normal questions. You're going to have answers already supplied. So, like, get insight into who people are looking at their social media. That shows the real them. But what are your thoughts? Do you think it's good that people are using social media to kind of vet potential employees? I think we might be paused.
Look for more repos. I think it's good to be looking at social media, but it scares me that 79% of HR pros have denied due to inappropriate content. I mean, I think that these buzzwords that you mentioned in the story aren't necessarily all that qualifies something as inappropriate content. There's been a number of stories that have come out where a girl's wearing a bathing suit or a guy's got a red Solo cup in his hand in a picture. And it's like that is not a representation of who a person is. And we're so biased in this society that we live in that I think that when you have a lot of applicants and you're just filtering through, you're looking as an HR rep, you're looking more at how can I weed people out than how can I find the right person. And when you see a bathing suit picture or a red Solo cup, it's like, oh, they're in this pile. I think that is just absolutely ridiculous. And so I think it's hurting people's social media. The other thing is a lot of these companies want you to have your social media on public. And if it's private, then that damages you as well. And that can put you into a whole nother category. I think that's BS, man. It's like, so I can't, like, I'm now restricted to my social life because I have to pretend. Like, I've been watching The Last Dance and like Michael Jordan has to be this perfect human at all times. It's like, I feel like I have to be a perfect human being just to satisfy the employer's biases. It's absolutely ridiculous in my opinion.
Yeah, at the other end though, I mean, if an employer is going to look at that and make a decision based off of that, it kind of gives insight into how they operate as a company. I mean, would you want to work for a company that makes decisions like that? So, I mean, it could save both people time if, I mean, you're denied a job because you're at a pool with a red Solo cup.
We don't have the luxury of that though right now. We don't have the luxury of like waiting around for the perfect job. There's an influx of applicants compared to supply of jobs, and so I think it can damage people for sure.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll agree to disagree on that topic. So right. On to the next one. We've been talking quite a bit just about conferences in general, events, virtual conferences. It's crazy. It's actually a $1.5 trillion industry, and there's been some big names that have lost quite a bit of revenue recently because they weren't able to put on their event. Mobile World Congress lost $480 million. South by Southwest lost $350 million. E3 lost $75 million. Google I/O lost $20 million. I mean, these are huge numbers. With the technology that we can do, I mean, like we're doing this, going live. I mean, do you think virtual events might not take over the in-person, but I mean, are they going to stick around, you think?
Well, I mean, one thing to consider for sure is that they're planning these events years in advance. Like, it's not even like 6 months in advance. We're talking like 2 years in advance to do SW. And so I think that for that reason, obviously they're losing a lot of money because it's all up in the air. I think it's interesting too, because I know that as like my inclination as a consumer and as just somebody that is very frugal and cheap at nature, I look at this and I go, okay, like I expect the price to be free for admission if I'm watching this remotely. Like Outreach.io had their big Unleash conference and they charged $2,000 a ticket. And I'm getting on there expecting for it to be free if it's online and I'm watching replays. And so I can't imagine that they're getting a whole lot of people to pay the same ticket price or even half the ticket price to go to the virtual version. And so, the numbers are going to deplete. The overhead is going to deplete too. So just because it's going to drop in cost in terms of the revenue that's being created, I think it's also going to drop the operating expenses it takes to put these on.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you on that, but I think that there's more opportunity on the revenue side by doing this. I mean, I hear you that it should be free if you're watching on demand afterwards, but I think there's a lot to be said about I could either send an employee to this conference that's going to cost $5,000, or I can have them just sit in the office and watch live for $40. I mean, now it's
Yeah.
like how many people aren't going because of the cost? I mean, you have so many small businesses that every dollar counts. That I mean, there's so much good information that could help businesses grow, but it's tough to justify that $3, $4, $5,000 ticket plus the cost of travel plus the cost of hotel and all that. And so I think there's so much opportunity on the live side of things. And like I said, if you're charging 40, $50, you'll get a whole lot more people jumping in. They'll then be
Yeah.
excited and share it. And so it can create
Right.
huge brand recognition, brand awareness
Well,
for the event.
yeah. Well, the baseline of why you would even put on an in-person event is to build your brand and spread awareness about it. And so why not have a digital version of the conference regardless? It's all about spreading the awareness, spreading the brand, getting eyeballs on it. So yeah, I would say that either way, it's going to be a smart move to start adopting to this method.
Yep. Agree with you there. So
Yeah.
there's a new company that is helping the restaurant industry. It's called Numa, and they're helping with a landline be able to take text orders, and people can call and place their order, and it takes voice recognition and then places the order for you. So now you're not having to rely on Uber Eats and all the delivery services where, I mean, they're taking a huge chunk of your orders. I mean, I've seen some receipts where it's like we made $3,000 in revenue, but after fees and all this stuff, we netted $800 in actual revenue. So I mean, there's a huge cost to provide that convenience for your customers. And so it's only $49 a month, and you can take unlimited transactions. It coordinates curbside pickup whenever the order is ready. It'll send the person a text. I think
Yeah.
it's huge. It's going to be a disruptor for the restaurant industry. What's your take on? I mean, I know your stance on taking data. I mean, do you think that people talking and then the voice recognition is going to be abused, or what are your thoughts on everything?
I mean, it's all going to be abused if we don't make rules. It's like we want to be pushing innovation, but the government's still in 1980 in terms of innovation, and it moves so slowly that it's like the only way to be innovative is to sacrifice the policies that go into protecting it. And so it's like, do we take the risk of going down the path before regulation catches up and risk our data and not be compensated fairly, or not? And I mean, I look at this and I think for restaurants it's really about local, so I'm not as concerned. I know there's bigger chains, there are bigger corporations, but everything is kind of being geared more towards your local, especially when it comes to brick and mortar. And so I've always wondered, why not be able to text the business right off of Apple Maps and put an order in? I mean, I love DoorDash and Uber Eats and everything else, but I know exactly what I want. If I can say, "Hey Siri, order me a double cheeseburger, like a double double from In-N-Out," and then it just comes to my house in 30 minutes. Like, I mean, I'd rather do that. Slaps compared to DoorDash, and it's like great. Like DoorDash, like your interface becomes like obsolete.
Yep. Yeah, one thing that was interesting in the article, it said 70% of phone calls actually get missed because during lunch and dinner, people
Yeah,
are
no
calling
one's
in and
ever
you don't have the
answered.
bandwidth to
Yeah,
answer. And so it's like how much more revenue could be made
no.
from restaurants. I mean, I think it's awesome.
Bro, I was in the empty parking lot last night at the Habit Burger at 8:30, waiting for them to come bring me the order out because it's a like contactless delivery or whatever, curbside pickup. And I'm sitting there calling the restaurant, calling DoorDash, thinking that the door is locked. And after 10 minutes of sitting there, I realize I have to walk in to get it. And I'm like, no one really knows what's happening here. So like, I think this would really smooth the process out.
Yep. Watch out, DoorDash and Uber Eats.
Hey, well, and
Companies are coming
they
for
could
you.
still have the fleet. They could still have one side of their revenue where they're paying the drivers, but in terms of the delivery process, yeah, it's almost easier that way. No, I love it. Well, getting to the next story, thought this was interesting. Stores within stores. This is something that's crazy. I know that my girlfriend's drugged me through Sephora before, as I'm sure you've been there as well, Dustin.
Yep.
Any guy has experienced the painstaking process of walking through JCPenney or Macy's and then being like, holy crap, there's 4 stores inside of this one store. This is a terrible idea for girls that are trying to spend money on things. And so stores within a store are going bankrupt because the stores themselves are going bankrupt. Sephora is one example of many that signed a huge deal with one of these retailers to actually create brick and mortar stores inside of the retail store. And I think that this is a dicey, slippery slope in terms of what can happen. And I know that we're kind of on the way out of shopping malls and everything else. And so I'm curious, like, what is a department store going to do besides go bankrupt? Like, how can they protect themselves right now? And how can these stores within a store bounce back from this whole thing?
Yeah, well, the stores within a store, I mean, that's kind of the cost of relying on someone else's retail space. I mean, it's the solution there is just go get your own store. But I think with so much e-commerce happening, I mean, brick and mortar needs to innovate. I was talking with my wife yesterday that, I mean, how cool would it be if Sephora or something had a rock climbing wall for kids, and now it's like, okay, I can get an extra 30 minutes, 40 minutes because my kid is entertained. And even then, it's like, how many people would go, all right, well, I got nothing else to do. Why don't we take our kids to go rock climbing? Oh, wow, look at that sale. And all of a sudden you're generating revenue. So it's like creating something to do within the location. And I think if people can do more than that or do that, if more retailers can do that, I think we'll see a big shift back over to retail. I mean, with how quickly things can get delivered, I mean, you can get things on Amazon in an hour or two. So the getting it right away, I think, is taking a share from retail, and I think it's just it's going to come down to innovation.
Yeah, no, I mean, I look at this and I think, people are more comfortable going back to the office than they are going to a restaurant or going to a store right now, which is understandable. At least you know that there's not been 100 other people that have touched the same thing on your desk that you're about to pick up the stapler, so it's like I see that. But it seems like the office spaces are opening up, or they're not in a rush to get back, where these stores are like begging people, like, please let us open, please come into our store. And so, I mean, I think we're going to start seeing stuff fly off the shelves at 60, 70, 80% off at Sephora and JCPenney. So don't tell my girlfriend. I hope she's not watching. I'm going to end up spending a lot of time.
Yeah, I know. My wife is probably watching and already going to get a text. When can we go?
Oh, no. Oh, no. Word. Well, let's jump into our next story. So I think this is interesting. Obviously, we've talked about small business loans and how the money is flying off the press right now and getting out to these businesses. And obviously is a big topical point right now. Seeing from the first to second round of funding, we saw a dramatic shift from the breadwinners of the first launch or the first round of funding went predominantly to states in the Midwest, which I was very surprised about. I would have thought probably East Coast. The East Coast saw the least amount of money come in terms of the spread of where the businesses are headquartered at that are being awarded the money. And the second round was almost entirely focused on the West Coast. So it almost seems like the government is taking this in chunks based on region. So I'm wondering when, and New York got a big chunk as well, but I'm wondering when I'm from the Southeast, and I wonder when the Southeast is going to see some love, when the Southwest is going to see a little bit more love. But it was interesting to see that it was very clear on that graph that it was Midwest on round one and mostly West Coast in round two.
It's interesting. I wonder what the thought process was there, because I thought it was up to the banks to kind of decide who they want to loan the money to, which I know that they kind of gave preferential treatment to the larger companies. I mean, there has to be something that goes into it in terms of where the workers at, where's manufacturing, what's actually making the economy tick, and kind of, I mean, it's probably strategically placing the money. But it is very interesting. I mean, that the East Coast didn't get as much. I mean, there's so many more people on the East Coast, which there's probably a lot more businesses there. I mean, what are your thoughts on how it's being distributed? I mean, should it be done geographically or by industry?
The intake process is so antiquated and I think that the banks, the big corporate banks like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they absolutely just like they closed the door on this real quick. And so it really came down to how can you get into these more localized banks. Those are the ones that had the capacity, surprisingly, to get these loans pushed through. But I think that the intake process through to the government, they're still trying to figure it out. I mean, I'm sure that they're working around the clock with people that have no idea what the hell they're doing. I mean, I looked at the application process and how you go about that. And I mean, it looks like further behind than Craigslist. It's like, what kind of software engineer? All the software engineers are in Silicon Valley. They need to hire some of those dudes to get out there and recode their system because it's just dog poop. And so like, I don't know how they're going to, like I just look at it and I go, seeing this graph is so like Midwest is completely red and then West Coast completely red. It's like they obviously didn't have very much sophistication. They're just like, crap, this pile's getting high. Let's grab some of this pile now. Like, so it's like I'm not super happy about how it's been done, but hopefully they just keep getting the relief to the right people and taking care of small businesses because those are the lifeblood of our economy more than even the big businesses.
Yep. I mean, to your point about the technology that the government uses it sounds like it's a bit behind. I mean, I saw some things where state departments for unemployment have been looking for coders that know code that's 20 years old, and it's like, that might be a security risk there. I mean, pretty vulnerable, but yeah.
Yeah, no, they held the Atlanta computers for ransom for 6,000 Bitcoin, $6,000 in Bitcoin a piece. Back in Atlanta, where I'm from, they held the whole computer system for ransom. So, like the malware, all this stuff, like they need to get their crap together. Like Donald, put some time into security, bro. Like we need it. But yeah, thank you guys for watching us debate, and hopefully the quality survived the length of the call here. But yeah, no, we appreciate you guys again. If you have stories, if you come across something interesting, you want to get it in front of us, please shoot it to us on Facebook. Whether you're looking at this on Dustin or my own, we're working on adding other channels and getting the website and everything live. So thank you guys for your support of us, and we're looking forward to bringing you more stories. So with that, Dustin, you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, appreciate the attention, and if you're dealing with adversity, just power through it. That's all you can do. It'll make you a better person.
And thank you, Avantage. I know we didn't really mention you in the mid-roll. We were just so hype about everything. But, Avantage, if you need to trade services, barter with your neighbor, this is a good time to be supporting local. Avantage.com, over 1,000 local businesses on there. Anything you can think of under the sun. People are ready to barter. They don't want to spend their money. So now is a perfect time to do it. If you sign up, you get $250 of Avantage credit, I believe, or $150. Either way, that's enough to get you started and get a bookkeeper for a month or something. So check them out. Again, you've been watching the Non-Corporate Network. This is Fill in the Blank. My name's Chaz Vandemotter.
Dustin Trout.
Thank you guys for being with us. We appreciate it. Go crush it today. Have an awesome day.
Till Monday.